Hey, everybody, and thank you for joining us for our last amazing presentation of Tech Week 21. We're totally excited to learn about Google Sites from Miss Jessica Wagner from Walker High School. So without further ado, if you want to go ahead and click on your presentation, I will get that up, and you can go ahead and take it away.
Thank you, Heather. Hi, I'm Jessica Wagner. I'm a Google Certified Educator Level 1. I'm a Walker High School teacher and alumna. I'm obsessed with learning. I've taught K through 12 over the last almost 10 years, and I now currently teach AP Computer Science Principles and English 2. This year I'll be teaching a brand new class called Cyber Society. I'm married and I have one son, and I'm a coffee and a CrossFit addict. I'd love to hear from our audience. I'd love to know who's here with us live today. Introduce yourself in the chat feature. What subject do you teach? What school are you from? Tell us something interesting about you. Questions are encouraged during this presentation. You can use the chat feature to ask questions. If your question's not answered or you think about it later, feel free to reach out to me. At the end of this presentation, you will know how to access Google Sites. Google Sites has updated. There is a new Google Sites. If you used Google Sites in the past, you will have to change your sites and update them, or you could lose access to them. If you are brand new to Google Sites, you do not have to worry about that. Everything that you create from this point forward will be on the new Google Sites. We'll talk about how to use templates to make a site, or you can create one from scratch, and a variety of ways that you can use Google Sites for educational purposes. So why would you want to use Google Sites? There are endless possibilities. Heather is going to share a link with you so you can access this site. And you'll notice that I have a link down here with even more Google Sites tips and tricks, but just some things that pop to mind immediately when I think about Google Sites is using it to create a class website, a club website, student portfolios. You can have students create projects, their very own websites where they can store information and resources. You can create unit websites. You can have standalone unit websites, or you can put them on your class website. You can use Google Sites to create a test. I know a lot of us use Google Forms, and sometimes it's a little limited what you can put on there, but you can embed Google Forms in a Google site and include much more information. You can create your very own digital escape rooms. I'm going to show you some examples. Blogging, and literally endless possibilities. So let's look at some examples. One of the reasons that I love Google Sites is it is so easy to use. You do not have to be very tech savvy. I'm going to age myself a little bit, but if anybody was around when MySpace was a thing and we had to look up HTML code and copy and paste and decipher all of that, well, technology's come a long way, and now all of that is behind the scenes. And you can create beautiful websites with no knowledge whatsoever in coding and programming. So the first thing I have here is an example of a class website. When I found out that I was going to be teaching a brand new class next year, I had to recruit for this class. And I very quickly created this Cyber Society website so that I would have something to show students when they asked, well, what is this class even about? So you can see this is a very simple website, just a course description, who should take the class. I've embedded YouTube videos, images, a little about me, and this just has 3 pages on this website. Very simple. The curriculum, and some example activities. So this is just a very simple website that I created. It took me maybe half an hour so that I could share this information with my students in a way that I felt they could relate to. I made a QR code, they scanned it with their phones, and they were able to read all about my new class. At the beginning of the year, I created an English 2 class website. This one is a little more complicated. It has a home page. Almost each page has a subpage. So my home page has a subpage with resources and help for parents. So I send a link to this website out in my welcome email at the beginning of the school year. I also send it through Remind, and it has everything that I thought parents might need at the beginning of the year located on one website. There's one link, calendars are linked. I'm going to show you how to do that, so I'm not going to click on that right now, but each unit, resources for the unit are created on subpages. I'd like to thank Rachel Gallman for letting me use some of her sites for examples. Rachel and I teach together, and she created her very own escape room after we went over how to use Google Sites. Escape rooms, if you're not familiar with them, are activities that you can do in class that have puzzles and riddles or quizzes that your students have to figure out to get to the end and escape from the activity. They look complicated because there are a lot of pieces, but once you know the basics of Google Sites and Forms, you can create an escape room about anything that you're teaching. So the students would visit the Google site for your escape room, and then you would link, and I'm going to show you how, link activities through images. So here on this activity, we actually link to make a copy of an activity. So the students would have that in their Google Drive to complete and then answer the question. This one is linked to an image that students have to solve a puzzle for. This one is linked to an outside website, Jigsaw Planet. So as you can see, there are tons of options for what you can link to from Google Sites. Another thing that Rachel and I did this year was we gave our English unit tests on Google Sites. And like I said earlier, Google Forms limits you as to how much text, and it doesn't limit you, but the formatting is a little awkward when you try to put a lot of text or images in Google Forms. But if you use Google Sites to create your test, it's easier to lay it out. You can have more images and text together, and then you simply embed your Google Forms, and the students submit it when they're finished. So now that you've seen a couple of examples, you have access to these links on the presentation. I've included the Google Sites official training and the step-by-step guide. If you like, what is step 1? What is step 2? I'm starting from the very beginning and I want a PDF that tells me where to start and what to do next. You can click here and check that out. But I'm going to step you through designing your own site. So let's go. So this is the new Google Sites. If for some reason it brought you to classic sites, you would just go to the menu over here and select the new Google Sites.
I don't mean to interrupt you. Sorry. We had a question pop up about the escape rooms.
Yes.
The question was from Jamie. It said, so I could have 5 problems that if students got correct, it would lead them to the end. But if they got one wrong, they would have to solve more to get back on track.
So they cannot move forward until they solve that problem.
Okay. All righty. Thank you.
So if they're working on problem 1, problem 2, they solve those, they move on, kind of like in a physical escape room, you make it to room 3, you can't unlock the door to the next room until you solve that problem and you get the key.
Awesome. Great. Thank you.
Welcome. So when you go to sites.google.com, this is the page that'll pop up. Any sites that you've created will be down here at the bottom. I have quite a few. You can start with a completely blank Google site, but if you're brand new to sites, I recommend checking out the templates. So you can expand the template gallery, And they have some examples, student portfolio, a class, as you'll see. This looks familiar because I started my Google Sites using the class template. We have a club template, portfolio, if you wanted to make a Google site for an event, personal, and then they have some work examples, small businesses down here. So I'm just going to choose class because we're all teachers here. So when you open your new Google site, the first thing you need to do is you need to name it. So I'm just going to name this example class. And just like most Google products, everything is saved automatically and it is saved to your drive. So I'm going to put my class name here. And I'm ready to start editing. Now, they've already formatted everything because this is a template. If I am new to Google Sites and I am very happy with this, I don't have a lot of time, I'm not reinventing the wheel, I can just go in here and I can change the image. If you have an image that you want to use, you can upload it, or if you're teaching a certain subject, just search Google. So you can click select images by search. If I was teaching a geometry class, just search geometry, and I could find something geometry related that piqued my interest and add it here. So this might be geometry first block. And now I've got this really cool image and my title. Editing text is very simple. You simply click on it and you can change the font. You have tons of options. You can add more fonts. I mean, if you've used, you have different options for the type of text you want to use, depending on your goals. Basic formatting, if you've used Google Docs, you're familiar with formatting, so I'm not going to stay there. However, if you decide you want to move things around, like say you wanted to insert 2 images at the top, if you look over here, it's super easy to move things around. You simply slide it and move it down. So I want my images at the top and my text down here, no problem. Let's say I want to add a whole new section. I'm here, I just select the section. We have layout options, pre-made. I already know that I have 3 images that I want to share with my students. I click on this and I can change the text. If I don't like that, I'll just delete it. A lot of the formatting options is kind of a, play with it, see how you feel about it. You can put images as the background. If you're familiar with Google Slides, works the same way. You can select a background image from your drive, images that are shared with you, search. Let's stick with my math theme here. And now this is my background for this section. If you like Google Slides, you are really going to like Google Sites. There's a lot of similarities. There's just more information that can be included in the space that's allotted. And if you're ever wondering what is this going to look like while I'm working on it, there's a preview button here where you can actually see what would my website look like on a desktop computer, on a tablet, and even on a cell phone, because we know some of our parents and students, they're only using their phone to get online. And then you just exit your preview. So if this is my home page, and I included all of the information that I wanted, but I wanted to add a subpage where I have my resources like I did, then you simply click on Pages. And here they have Schedule and Newsletter. These are my tabs at the top for different pages, but I don't want a whole new page. I just want a subpage. Then I can click here and I can add a subpage. And this might be my resources page. So if I'm on my resources page and it automatically copies the background image from my homepage, you'll notice that's all it provided for me. So now it has like the blank slate that you would get if you opened Google Sites and you just created new from a blank slate. You can add anything that you want in here. So if I wanted to start from a template, let's say I want to include an image here. I want to bring them to a learning website. Whoops, sorry. I don't want to add from my images. You can select an image, or you can also include a YouTube link. So say I wanted to include YouTube videos on things that I was teaching them, then I could simply search for that and embed it directly into the site. So I could have a resource page with all of the YouTube videos that I wanted them to check out. And it's as simple as typing in search. Here we have Introduction to Geometry. I'm going to select it. Now, if I use the template and I decide I want to change the way that it looks, I simply have to drag whatever it is that I'm moving around. Just have to drag it wherever I want it. Now, if I wanted them to watch these videos and then test their knowledge somehow, I have so many different ways that I can insert things onto these pages. So we have the option to add collapsible text. We have the option to add a table of contents. We can add an image carousel. So say I wanted to share a lot of images, but I don't want my website page to be just this massive collection of images. I could add an image carousel. And I'm just going to do random images from online. And I say, I'm just going to select these. If these were in your Google Drive, they would be something that you had already prepared to share with the students. You could insert them. Format the size however you would like it. And what this does is it creates the opportunity for them, let's look at it on a computer screen, to flip through multiple images without having them all on the page together and overwhelming. They would just be looking at one at a time. Now, when you make a test, so let's say, let me go over here. I'm just going to add a page. We're going to call it the test page. So here, if I was going to create a page where I had a test for a student, like I showed you on our example, Rachel and I gave tests using Google Sites. You create the website as you would for any other purpose, and you label it appropriately. So here we would insert the Google form from our drive. We could insert it, or we could also embed it if you wanted to copy and share the link here, or simply pull it from your drive. If you're like me, you have a ton of stuff in your Google Drive, so sometimes I just like to go to the form and copy it. Now, when you're sharing with students, they're logged in with their livingstonschools.net email account. They can access everything. One thing I want to mention is if you are going to share your website with parents, let me pull mine up so I can show you. You're going to have to change the settings. So for example, my Cyber Society class, when I handed out the flyers with the QR code, I wanted students to be able to scan it or parents to be able to scan it and not have to log into Google. So when I did that, you just have to go to your share settings, and down here you'll see links, and it says links vary. You change it. So here, anybody who has a Livingston Parish Public Schools email, if I shared this draft with them, they can view it. But here, my published site, I want to make sure that that's public if I'm going to be sharing this with parents, or if I want students to be able to access this from any device where they don't necessarily need to log into their Google account. And one reason that I feel this is very helpful is parents can't always access Google Classroom. I teach mostly sophomores and some juniors, and I would call home throughout the year, and more often than not, I would hear from parents that they couldn't access their students' Google Classroom. Oh, they won't log me in, or I can't figure out how to get in there. Well, that's a bit of a barrier if you have a parent who's trying to help their students, but they can't access the material without their students. So one way that you can share material with them is to create a Google site, especially if you created a class website like this one, and make it public. Then you can share all of these activities and resources with the parents by providing them with the link. And as you publish your Google site and you add the updates, so let's say for this one, this is a published website. In order to show you how to publish it, I have to make a change, but all I have to do is make it look like I made a change. So if I go here to publish, it'll show you what's currently published and your draft. And then you click publish, it updates automatically. And now that link that you shared 6 months ago, a year ago, doesn't matter. They're still seeing the updated website that you've published. So when you add resources for your parents or your students, it's automatically updated, just like it would be with Google Slides if you shared a Google Slides link with them. I feel like I went a little off track there. So if we go back to the test page, you can embed your Google Forms here. Now, combining the Google Forms with the idea of sharing information with parents, you can embed Google Forms to get information from your parents throughout the school year. You just, again, have to change the settings on your Google Forms to make sure that someone doesn't have to be logged into Livingston Parish Public Schools to fill out your form.
Jessica, I just wanted to pop in and I'm scared of you. I wanted to pop in and say that I love this. I never thought about putting a form on the website. Like now that you say it, it seems like duh, but it never even occurred to me to do that. So I'm so excited that you're bringing that up. That's all. I'll pop back off now.
Thank you. It scared me because I'm just looking at my presentation, so I don't know what. Didn't expect somebody to talk to me. Yes, I love the fact that we can share Google Forms. If you create a club website, if you create a sports site, and you're trying to gather volunteers. I mean, if you've attended a Google Forms training, the things that you can do with Google Forms are endless. And having it linked or embedded into your Google site just gives everyone easier access to it. So I'm going to pull up my English site because it has the most going on. Okay, so here we have, this is my class website. It's published. I share it with my parents when I send an email home at the beginning of the year. I had so much ambition at the beginning of this year. I was going to do so much on this Google site. And then we had virtual and in-person and AB days. And I don't have to tell you, this year was a bit hectic. So I didn't get to do quite as much as I was hoping on my Google site, but I am hopeful that this year, as we progress, I will be able to include more resources on my Google site. So here we have, I already showed you my resources page. You can link your calendars and your bell schedule. All the information that you're required to share at the beginning of the year. We're all supposed to keep our OnCourse website up to date. I personally don't find it as easy to update my OnCourse website as I do my Google resources. This past year, I actually embedded a Google Slides presentation into my OnCourse so that I would not have to go behind the scenes in OnCourse this year. I can update my Google Slides presentation, and it automatically updates my teacher website on OnCourse. And I linked my class website and resources. This is my Google site. So this is what it looks like when parents visit my Google site. I have my welcome letter, my about me, because this was my first year at Walker and most people do not know who I am. I have my resources and help page. So that here what I've done is I've embedded my Google Doc for my course syllabus. So parents and students can access my course syllabus at any time on my website. Resources that I thought they would find helpful. The grading scale. So my first page, my home page and my sub page for my home page are very general, but then I have unit web pages. So these are very simple. Like I said, I didn't get to go as far as I wanted this year with my plans for Google Sites. However, I did include a breakdown of what each unit is about, what's included, and then independent reading options. So I have here requirements. I have the Google Doc embedded so parents can see a copy of that. So if I call home and I say, little Johnny hasn't been doing his reading journal, and the parent says, I don't know what that is, the parent doesn't have to access Google Classroom to see that. I can tell them that they can access it on our class website. Our second unit is a novel. So I've actually embedded a PDF of the entire novel. So if parents or students want to see that, this is simply embedded from my Google Docs. And then Unit 4, we study Antigone. So I have my what Unit 4 is about, and subpage, I have resources for that piece of literature. So like I said, I didn't get as far as I wanted to this year with sharing resources on my Google site, but this is there for any parents who want to see a general, what is the unit about? In the future, my goal is to share more resources. I'm going to post our agendas. I watched Nikki's presentation on parent communication, and I'm super excited to be able to put my agenda Google Slides linked on my website so that parents can access that rather than having to log into Google Classroom and rely on their students to tell them what's going on.
I love that. Jessica, I do have a quick question. Can you show us how to embed the Google slide in OnCourse? Can you show us how to do that?
Yes, I can.
I don't know how to do that, and I want to do that.
Okay, I'm going to be super honest. It's been a while, but let's see.
Because to me, that presentation I did about parent communication and Google Slides and all of that, that would be so perfect right there too. Or if I could, yeah. Okay, I just have a lot of ideas spinning. I want to know how you did that.
I have to remember my OnCourse login, Nikki.
I know. Okay, I'm sorry. I put you on the spot.
Fun.
But we can definitely, we can type it in at the bottom. That's what we'll do. You finish your presentation. We will type out how to do it and put it in the comments because I definitely want to know how to do that. Because I
can even make a screencastify. I just have to remember my actual login for OnCourse.
Yeah.
Because like I said, once I embedded that Google slide, I didn't have to log in.
Leave it alone.
This year. I just, everything was embedded through Google. Absolutely love everything Google.
Yeah, that is
and
awesome.
I just go to, like I said, I go to my Google Drive and I can update this and it automatically is updated on my teacher website.
I flip and love it. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, Alicia Guidry says she used HTML coding to put mine in my own course
Yeah.
page.
So
Okay.
when you go to File, Publish to the Web,
Yes.
on any slide, you can do it by link or by HTML code. So instead of copying the link that gives you an option to click on code, you grab that code, which is the HTML code, and then when you go and put it in OnCourse on the website, you actually put it in code and it'll show up like that.
Yes, and you do have to play. You have to play with the size, because I do remember that when I first published it, the sizing was off, and I had to play with that. But I mean, that takes just a few minutes, and then you're set.
Oh my gosh, you're killing it. Okay, thank you. I'm sorry. I'll pop back off now.
That's okay. No, I welcome more questions. I'm kind of like, there are so many things I can show. I'm not sure which direction to go in.
You're doing great. You can pick it back up.
So you can make these as simple or as fancy as you want. I haven't shown you what it looks like if you, well, first of all, I haven't shown you everything you can put in there. So when you want to link something, they have this button option. Well, if you put a button in, let's say I wanted to send them to Livingston Parish Public Schools, and I just put lpsb.org. I want them to go here. I mean, it's okay looking, but it's not really exciting. You can actually make personalized buttons by creating your own images and simply linking them. So for example, on Antigone over here is a button. Simply because I linked the image. So I don't use the button option very often because it's just more exciting to do it another way. You can also use Google Draw to create your own buttons. You can use Canva. If you're not familiar with Canva, it is so easy to use. And as an educator, you can get a free educator account once you're verified and create all the graphics you could possibly imagine. I was doing a quote of the day for a while when we were virtual and posting that using Canva for Educators. There are so many free templates and images that you can use on there. Just that is a note that we need to make. Any images that you put on your website, you need to make sure that they are available to use for free and that they're not copyrighted. And Google makes that, well, Google and Bing make it easy to search because you can restrict your image searches by free for commercial and personal use. So just make sure before you publish a website with any images that you have the right to use them, or at least give credit to the owner. So other things, dividers, that's self-explanatory. It creates a divider. If you are working on your site and you're like, I want to put something here, but I'm not sure what I want to put there yet, you have a placeholder option. So like, I want to come back and put an image here later. I don't want to forget about it. So let me put this placeholder here. I already showed you how to do YouTube. You can embed your Google Calendar like you saw on my website. You simply click calendar and it's linked to your Google Classroom account. So you just decide which calendar you want to insert. And there it is. Super simple. You can include maps if I want to include map, say we're studying a certain region and I want to put a landmark on there. I can insert a map. We used Google Earth a bit whenever we were studying Things Fall Apart. I'm sure that would be super interesting in geography class. Down here, you have all of your Google Docs, slides, sheets, forms, charts that you may want to include. It links directly to your Google Classroom. So it is super simple to use. You click on it. So here's my syllabus. I want to insert my syllabus. It's right here. I can make it take up less space on the page. And so what this looks like is if this is all the space I want it to take up, that would be kind of annoying if I was actually doing that for my syllabus, but just for an example, it only takes up this much space. And then the parents or students could just scroll on here to see the entire document, or if they want to see it full page, they can just pop it out. You can do that with any of your Google Docs. One more note. So when they pop it out, it does open in Google Docs. So if they needed to make a copy of that, if you wanted to share documents with your students this way, you would simply tell them, give them the instructions, open the document, make a copy. It'll save it in your drive. Now, as I've learned, you will have to teach your students how to do that if they haven't had a teacher who frequently used Google Docs in the past, which at this point, a lot of teachers are becoming more familiar with ways to share and pass out information with Google. So hopefully next year, there will be a lot less teaching the students how to use and access their resources in Google Classroom. You can embed your slides. So if I want to, for example, put in my agenda slides, this is my teacher slide, but it'll work the same way. I can make it take up as much or as little space as I want on my site. And when they visit, my presentation's here, and you have the navigation arrows down here at the bottom. So if you don't want to overwhelm them with information, you can insert it in a Google slide and they can move on when they're ready. It's super simple to organize things. It's starting to look a little messy because I left everything in here. And then of course, forms and charts. If you have any, I haven't used charts much. Oh, I cannot click on that because that is going to be personal information. But if you want to embed your forms, here is a direct link to all of the forms, and it's organized by when was the last time you accessed it. So if you just created a Google form, it'll be the very last thing. You put it on here. One thing that I like to use Google Forms for is a parent contact log. I keep track of every time I contact a parent, but a way that you could use this with Google Sites is you could even have a form where parents request contacts with you. I know it's different per school what your procedures are with the parent contact. You have theme options. So now that you know how to insert all of this and the basics, how to add pages. Oh, you can hide pages. Say you're working on something and you're not ready to share it. You can hide it from the navigation. And then they will not be able to see it until you're ready to share it again. So you might create a unit page and you want to share the resources for one activity and you're moving on and you want to keep those resources on the website for next year, but you don't want students to be accessing them all year long. You can hide them. And then you can change the theme on your templates. You have color choices, font styles. Google makes everything very simple. Now, if you don't like any of their templates, okay, you can start with a template and delete things, or you can start with a blank site. I personally have never started with a blank site just because they make it so easy to change the templates. When you start with a blank site, it is just the header, the title, and the site name. There's really cute stuff you can do. You can add emojis to make it more interesting. You can do that with your buttons as well. Like I said, you can make this as simple or as elaborate as you'd like. Does anybody have any questions?
Jessica, I absolutely love this presentation. I love this. This was so good. And it was like, I feel like I know Google Sites because I use it all the time, but I learned, like, I jotted down quite a few things. So I'm really excited about being able to do these things. We had a lot of comments like putting stuff in on course, saving it as a picture and using the link, and like all kinds of great comments that are going to be available during the video, during the replay.
Awesome.
Yeah. So that's it. That wraps up Tech Week. I think we ended on the perfect note.
And we made it through our last presentation, knock on wood, with 0 technical difficulties.
Yeah.
Anyway.
For those of you watching now, don't forget to fill out the survey and attendance link at the bottom. We definitely use your feedback for future stuff. So that's important. Don't just leave it blank. And also, we use that attendance to draw door prizes, and those door prizes are really good, like really good. All kinds of good stuff from big to little. So make sure you fill that in for every single one. If you haven't gotten your fill, they have lots of pre-recorded options too. So go watch some of those as well. Heather, you got anything to add before we close it out?
I do not, other than thank you everyone for presenting, for coming, for conversing with us. It makes what we do fun, and we do appreciate that. We like the interaction, and we want to feel like we're being useful, and this actually kind of makes us feel that way. So thanks so much for joining in, and we hope to see everybody real soon. Enjoy your summer, rest, relax, rejuvenate, and we'll catch y'all at the end of July. Bye, everyone.